Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome to Under the
Oh,
how you doing today? Welcome to Under the Influence, where creativity takes center stage. I truly am happy to be here with you two today. Now, it's a miracle to believe that some people out there are not familiar with A.T.A. But for those people that just aren't informed, would you do me the pleasure, without further ado, please give us a little intro? I'm here with Jessica and James Jennings. Maybe tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your background.
well, I'm James Jennings, and I'm the founder of the American Theater of Actors 49 seasons ago. And we just began our 49th a couple of weeks ago. So I have basically set our mission being that we produce new plays by new playwrights. And occasionally we'll throw in a Shakespeare, occasionally we'll throw in a Chekhov or a Strindberg, and maybe ever so often a Shaw. So that's to give the actors a plenty to work with.
Sure, sure. And Jessica, what a pleasure to be here with you.
Nice to meet you. I'll just add that just this little person named Lee Strasberg is the one who encouraged him to go off on his own and create a theater.
Yes, yes.
So he took that to heart and then he did it.
Wow.
And he's been serving the interests of directors, actors, and playwrights ever since.
I heard in the past a phrase that always sticks with me, especially when it comes to the arts. It's leap and the net will appear. That stuck with me. I kind of big fan of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And, that phrase for me really just resonated. Every once in a while, you hear something that sticks. And that one did. So I feel like look what happened after you took that bold leap, James, and leapt. So, congrats to you. And thank you both for being here. And Jason as well, Michaels, who basically was very helpful in getting this together. It's a pleasure to be here to, really have a dialogue about the arts. And I feel fortunate to be here. And I'd like to just ask a couple quick questions regarding this season. Now, I've read that you were in the 465 new works or original works. Have you hit that 500 mark yet? Are you close to that 500?
Probably double that.
Oh,
Probably
wow.
more
Okay.
1,000. Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, so I must have been reading a dated article there for sure.
Probably.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'd like to start off with the phrase "life imitates art," and now we've often used this to describe, of course, the theater, and how real life events and societal changes reflect themes explored in the arts. Would you just go a little bit into the 2024 season at ATA and with its lineup of the diverse stories and reflect maybe upon I guess you could say the societal changes happening today, especially with the possibility of Kamala Harris becoming a first female biracial president in the United States of America. I did look, at the upcoming schedule, and I said I thought it was very appropriate. If you would touch on that a little bit, be so kind as to just touch on that, that would be wonderful.
Well, I think it's important because this is a huge, vast world that we live in. And we at ATA produce shows from playwrights from Africa, playwrights from India, playwrights from Switzerland, France, England, as well as the United States. And Harold Clurman used to say the theater is meant to reflect the current crises of that particular society. And that's what we're doing.
I think Jim has always had a diverse roster of artists here. He's always been committed to female voices in theater. He's always been committed to diverse voices in theater. We did put a sort of stamp on that several years ago and formalize it as an initiative to support women in theater and an initiative to support African American playwrights. And of course, this season is no different. I believe you're pointing at our October lineup, which is full of African American historical plays. And it's sort of just a wonderful joy to see that on the roster. Buffalo Hero of World War I, about Wayne Minor. We have Resurrection about the Tulsa Massacre of 1921. And then we have a renter coming in to do Zora, about a historical figure in Harlem. So is a very powerful and interesting lineup of female voices and African American voices for sure.
Excellent. Thank you. You know, while I'm on the topic, I'm going to just segue a little bit. That being said, I know you have 4 different theaters, if I'm not mistaken there, 4
Right.
different spaces. Would you say that process is the same for each space, or does it vary a little bit by director? That just made me kind of think of that, because when you had discussed each different work coming up, it kind of made me think of maybe there's a different process for each space, each director, each casting. Would you mind just dipping into that a tiny bit?
Well, we try to make sure that the play is with the proper director. We want to make sure that the theater that the play is going to be in fits that particular project. Sometimes it's in a small theater, sometimes it's in the large theater, and sometimes they're in the middle too. But it all depends on the playwright as well as the needs of that play.
Okay, understood. Sometimes the space could lend itself to the playwright or the actual piece, maybe. And in a perfect world, I guess it would blend all 3, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So in today's world where acceptance and diversity are central conversations, how does the 2024 season of work push those boundaries and almost challenge the societal norms, if you will? Because right now, I think the key word that I've been running into recently is acceptance, right? I mean, just, really accepting an individual's, it could be anything from work, lifestyle, who you love, what you do for your hobby. Acceptance is almost, on the ballot in a sense. How do you feel some of the pieces, not to keep getting overly political with this, but I do feel like the arts has a responsibility in a sense to, like you said, echo what is going on in society. Is there something that challenges the societal norms that sticks out in your upcoming pieces?
Well, I would say that each play is different than the next. There's no 2 plays identical. So in terms of the issues that are in that play, we want to make sure that they cover something that's very relevant to our times and the society that we live in. Coming up in the near future, we have a play called Buffalo Hero, and the other one is Resurrection. And
what stands out for me is Overruled, which is a Shaw play from 1912. And even though it is a play from 1912,
Yeah.
it deals with basically swingers like that, like two couples that are to oversimplify, let's say, wife swapping. So
Yeah,
this is still a very, very taboo subject matter. It
yeah.
was definitely taboo in 1912. And it's still something that is taboo. And the director, John DiBenedetto, is not setting it in 1912. He's modernizing it. And I think that will resonate with our audience even more. I mean, and as far as diversity, there is an Italian playwright on the list that I'm looking at, and there is an Algerian playwright on the list this season. So anything standing out for you?
So when you reference swingers, it's not about the swing dancing, right? We're not going like the 1990s where it had that revival. Right? That one movie, Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau brought back. No, understood.
Anything stand out for you as far as?
I like to say that every play that I choose to produce, I'm in love with. So I have to be, or else I'm not going to put it up. So they're all equal unto themselves.
Sure. Yeah. So you're equally in love with that piece at the time. You have to give it the care, give it the attention, and then take it to that next level, like any relationship, I guess you could say, in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to go back, and you started making a correlation between the responsibility of art and
Yeah.
society. And I mean, absolutely, we agree with that. And I think if anything, playwrights today have a lot more room to be, open and honest with their whatever it is that they're ruminating and tackling.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot more acceptance of them. There was a time when you really couldn't write about gay stories, and now of course you can. So we continue to, in arts in general, we continue to push that envelope and crack open the nut, and of course deal with human issues. But it's just nice to see that we can deal with more taboo things that used to be taboo are no longer taboo, and so now there's a new taboo, and we just keep pulling up and dredging that human emotion. And then this is why the classics are classics, is generally they deal with some human truth that will carry through the ages and continue to be relevant through time.
Those themes sometimes I find to be timeless throughout a piece, and they can be told at any time as long as that through line is there. And I have to say, I couldn't agree more. From my experiences, I guess some people don't know what they really don't know, and when they see it in a different medium, a different form, or maybe they experience someone else's experience, you really walk away, hopefully, with a new perspective or some empathy or some sympathy or something for that story you just saw, and you would never have been really I guess you say exposed to, and that really hopefully has a lasting effect, and then in turn really affects society. Let's hope. Let's hope.
And
yes.
To that point, I think the lineup of African American plays being historically rooted, telling stories of real figures in African American culture and American culture is, it's just a wonderful offering, because they are stories that people were not told. People are not learning about the Tulsa Massacre in school. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge learning experience for me. And I've seen the show. I've seen it. We've done several productions of it. I've seen it a few times.
Talking about Resurrection?
Yes. And
I've mounted it 3 times already in the past year and a half.
Oh, okay.
It's shocking, and it's maddening. You sit there and you watch and
say, how could this be happening? How could we not know that this happened?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Sure. It is. I just talking about it, of what, and I don't know, everything about the subject, but I've seen a fair share of some documentaries, and it is mind blowing. It's devastating in many senses. My next question, we tapped on a little bit with the significant cultural changes, political changes happening globally, and especially with all the new tech and all the phones and the TikToks and the YouTubes and the Zooms, guilty. Do you feel that theater still holds the power and influence that the public values or opinions of, and really, do you think it can drive the social change because it maybe occupied a different space in the past? And how would you say? That's a tough question, because I feel like, of course we feel, but considering the vast landscape of different mediums today, do you feel like there's still an effect in that theatrical world today? Maybe not as much, maybe more, maybe it's more significant. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
You want to start?
Well, every generation has their issues, and sometimes 3 generations pass, and the one that just came into existence knows nothing about the ones that were preceding them. Sure. And the issues are always relevant because they are the people that are experiencing them and living through them and want to write about them. And sometimes certain theaters or certain platforms don't want to mount it, or sometimes they will, but hesitantly. but it's important to get it mounted and not be hidden forever in a closet, because it's important that that problem, which is, let's say, bothering millions of people, needs to be discussed and talked about. And what better way than to do it through the world of entertainment?
Sure.
So, and also to your point, it occupies a different space in society than it used to. And actually, an hour ago, Jim was just telling me that, in the ancient times, they pretty much forced everyone to go to the amphitheater, right?
Yes.
They forced everyone to show up. Sure. So yes, it absolutely occupies a different space, and unfortunately, young people are far less exposed to live theater than ever before. And it's very hard to know what will come of that or what the meaning of that is. However, that doesn't mean theater and theater arts and theater training is not important. I think people who train in theater are some of the most reliable people, not, regardless of becoming a trained artist and entering that as a profession. You go through the training process of the arts and you become an incredibly rigorous individual. I think hiring people who have trained in the arts is one of the best things anybody can do in any field. You hire people who did theater, hire people who did musical theater, hire people who studied piano. They've crossed their left and right brain hemispheres. They've done incredible amount of extracurricular hours and training. And team. They really learn a lot about team when you work in the theater community. So whether or not you go on to be a professional, having that background and having the background as a young person who is learning about yourself and realizing that you can actually, you are already mimicking something as you become 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You're already setting yourself, these are my idols and I want to be just like them. And you already are mimicking them. But if you're shy and you don't know how to be self-expressed, you can learn those skills. And I think the people who go to schools and teach theater skills, public speaking, self-expression, they're heroes because they are literally training up young adults to push their own envelope or crack open their shell. You can absolutely learn vital skills in terms of what you want to do in the world. And if you need to sit down and ace an interview, you can practice and rehearse that. So theater skills, I hope, will never disappear because they are so vital.
Yeah, I once again, I could not agree more. The ability for a person to really develop their own skill set that could, maybe it was originally intended for the arts or the theater, the stage, what have you, but it will follow through for your entirety of your life. Let's face it, you'll always be punctual, you'll always be honest in the moment, you'll always be prepared, you'll always know how to work with a team. These are things that they could apply to someone's life, in perpetuity for sure. So moving forward, my next question, utilizing Buffalo or Zorba or Zora, sorry, excuse me, wrong interview. Would you possibly expand how A.T.A is really becoming that artistic hub for maybe it's just this October month or just the African-American playwright? You touched on it a little bit before. And did you think that was already in the works, or do you think it just kind of developed into this time right now? The timing linked up as far as what you were preparing for the season, or how did that shift maybe happen right now, or at that kind of transition?
Well, when we began, our first play was by Tennessee Williams, and the second play was by a guy named Dennis Watlington, African American. And our third play was by Bob Heide, who is from the United States, and he's basically a Caucasian. Every play that we pick, we make sure that it has something to do with society at the moment. And many books have been written about how to act. Some books have been written about how to direct, but very, very few books have been written about how to write a play. But when you do start a play, you have to be basically aware that there's a beginning, middle, and end. But then from there on, there could be comedy, drama, farce, all types of different types of venues for that playwright to work in. Musical comedy, musical drama.
As far as our particular season, I think it's safe to say we have a lot of plays. We have a whole stack, like a 4-foot tall stack of plays that are approved for production. And then we match it up with we invite directors to read, and we want to make sure there's a match. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, we are not able to plan 18 months in advance. It's just not our particular business model. So we're planning more like 5 months in advance in terms of like lining everything up with the director, with the playwright, and then making sure that even on the calendar at that point, what dates do we have available? Because in addition to producing 20 of our own plays every season, we are actually renting our space. We, as you pointed out before, we have 3 spaces of various sizes, and we rent out to other organizations and independent producers who either are local to New York City or maybe are coming in. We bring people in from, they come in from Korea and Italy and all over the world. So a lot of it's luck, and a lot of it's, it's just about how all the calendars line up. And, it also is about the space, because if you want to do a large show on a large stage, we have to look and see, is that stage available? Are you willing to go to a smaller stage, or vice versa? We have directors who love working in our smallest theater. They really do. The small theater, the Beckman, it provides the most intimate experience. And it also allows you to really focus on the acting and directing, and not have to throw a lot of resources into building an elaborate set, because it's not possible in that space. Sure. And the agents have loved it. Bruce Willis got picked up doing the show. This tiny little 35-seat theater.
The second show he did.
Yeah, that actually was as part. I'm glad. Perfect segue. My next question, and we're rounding third here a little bit, and in regards to your history, your rich history there at A.T.A, is maybe you can, include 1 or 2 names that came across the theater, and perhaps, like you had mentioned, Bruce Willis, Chazz Palminteri, Kevin O'Connor, Edie Falco. Maybe there are a couple, perhaps like a story that comes to mind, and then maybe even one step further could be a play that really went further than maybe even originally thought, maybe by surprise, or you knew right away, maybe a war story or 2. But why don't we start with the individual actor, maybe a Bruce Willis, a Chazz Palminteri, something like that, and then we'll go to a show after that.
All right. When it came to Bruce Willis, he was the third person to play that part in 3 different productions that we had planned and actually executed.
For Bullpen.
The Bullpen. So for him, he was the one who lucked out and got an agent to come and see him, and was signed on the second show. Everybody has a slightly different story. Dennis Quaid did a show here. 6 months later, he became one of the biggest stars in the industry for a while. Chazz Palminteri, also Kathryn Hahn, did 3 shows in our medium theater, and got picked up, I guess, with an agent on the 3rd show. David Morse saw me on the street one day and said, "Why haven't you listed me? I was discovered at your place." I said, "Oh, okay, I'll make sure you're listed." Yes. So the journey of an actor, an actress, is pretty, I would say, not only Herculean, but is different than the other guy. No two have the same journey. Many years ago, we tried to put Denzel Washington in a play, and he was ready to come into rehearsal, and suddenly he called us and said he couldn't do it. He got into a TV show called Saint Elsewhere.
No,
Well, never did the show, but you know what? He comes back from time to time to see what shows are here and how he can help other people.
sure. Wow. That's interesting. That's that's quite a list of names you have there too. I have to say the Chazz Palminteri, he was on my mind for quite some time. I didn't know, was there any association with A Bronx Tale? Did he originate that show there? Was that later on,
Well,
after, or?
I'll tell you the way I know a little bit of history about that.
Yeah.
He did 3 shows here. One of them in the Sergeant called The Boys in the Truck. It went to Broadway and it closed in 1 week. He did another show here in the big theater, and then he did another show in the big theater. And then he got disturbed and went out to California and wrote his play, Bronx Tale. But
Right.
one of my actors who had been with me for about 2 years and had done about 12 or 13 shows here, Dan Lauria, picked it up and produced it out there in California, and then brought it here to New York and performed at the East Side on 73rd Street. And my board member, Bob De Niro, picked it up and made a motion picture out of it. So that had a very unusual history.
Sure, that trajectory kind of, here you are, New York, he goes out to the West Coast and he comes back here. And of course, the board member, Bob De Niro, we all know that guy, right? I'm sure he was influential in that as well. So that has quite a story behind it. And I've had the pleasure of seeing that myself. What about anything with Urinetown at all? I heard a little something. Anything to do with Urinetown over at ATA?
Well, yes. There was a director back in 1996 or 94 that did a show for me.
Yeah.
And a few years later, about 5 years later, he calls me up and says he wants to do another show. And I said, what is it? And he said, well, it's not one that he wants not to direct this one. He wants to produce it. And this was Mike Rigo from Morocco Productions. So we mounted it here, and John Cullum was starring in it. And it got picked up to go to Broadway by the Dodger. So,
it really I think it goes to show that there, like you had said, there's truly no set path. There's no set trajectory. It really is, going back to that theme of leaping and the net will appear. I think you do have to have that. How do you say? You have to have that goal of saying, I'm going. It's not so much the destination, it is the journey. And that, with that being said, I truly, truly thank you both so much for being with me here. I love collaborating with artistic people and people within the arts and exploring the arts with me one story at a time, as to keep everyone under the influence. I'm Brandon CUSMA. What a pleasure, Jessica and James Jennings. I can't thank you enough for your time today.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right. How you doing? I feel like, woo. I always feel a little, a little bit kind of holding in, because I try to stay still. I'm a mover. I like to move.
Oh, that's
so
good.
For me, I'm like, woo, it's tough to stay still. I just thank you so much for your time today. So wonderful talking to you. Really, really is. I
You did a great job.
In person one day, and one day soon. And
Yeah.
for the for the record, because my kind of arts, the discovery of arts came later on in life, and almost in my, I guess say, 20s, and came from a very blue collar background, and found arts in my maybe early 20s, and it opened my world up to so much. I just feel so much gratitude, to the arts. For it was almost, I went to some a couple years of college here, but my theater was the tour, or that show in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or the cruise ship, or working with Jay in the city, Jay Michaels. That was my college, and opened me up to all these things that we spoke about. And I'm just getting chills thinking about it, because it changed my life so much for the better. And I only hope that some people could, experience that too, because they don't know what they don't know. And sometimes it's just it's sad that they won't grow, in a sense. It's really, but it's beautiful when someone does, and we all have that, kind of goal to make someone grow, or to grow ourselves.
Well, I will tell you that we get about 2 or 3 plays a day from all over the country.
Yeah.
Some from Oregon, Maine, Ohio, Illinois, Texas, Florida. They come from all over. And
Sure.
they're playwrights aging from 25 to 75.
Wow. So did you say that the playwrights are from 25 to 75?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's
I
beautiful.
never know their age until I never know their age until I've read it and meet with them. And
Right.
it could be the 25-year-old guy or the 75-year-old person that we tend to
Sure.
fall in love with this play.
And how do you go through all those scripts? I mean, how do you possibly, how do you do that?
I have to do it daily, or else I get into a backlog.
Sure. That's like my emails.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's real bad. Well, that's really interesting. And once again, I can only imagine the amount of reading you do, and I can't thank you enough for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Well, come see a show if you're ever. Where are you based?
I'm
Are you
based
in
out of
the
Long Island, Long Island, New York. I'm in the city a decent amount. I would love to come see a show. Absolutely. And thank you so much for the invite. I would really, really love it. Bring, my wife, or possibly a friend or something. And I would love to see a show, or finally see Jay. It's been a minute since I've seen Jason in a while, and I would absolutely love that. And
Have
if
you
you're
ever
ever in
done
Long
a
Island,
show? Have you ever done a show here in
no,
this-
not at ATA, and not in the city in quite some time. I think one of my last shows was quite a few years ago in South Carolina at the Charleston Music Hall, and I would absolutely love to do another show again. I've just been a little bit more kind of I moved to the real estate world. I always had my real estate license and my performing, I guess you could say. Performing for me was a little bit of, I know I'm going to do this for a certain part of my life, but if I have something, it's funny because real estate is very hard for some people, but for compared to performing and auditioning and going on the road and no, I actually look at real estate as like, it's pretty easy comparatively. So there's anything that prepared me, going back to those skills we spoke about, showing up, being honest, being punctual, doing the right thing, always looking out for the team, whoever's with you. When you were saying that was really resonating, because it's that's how I approach my client, whether it be a buyer or a seller. And for 28 years, the week my first show is when I literally got my real estate license, and they always work very well with one another. I was doing a show for 3 months, 4 months, didn't matter, and when I came back and was speaking with a client, they were like, hey, this guy's not like, just I guess you could say you stand out a little bit when you work with a team a little bit.
You get animated, you learn how to be animated.
Yeah, and the trust is there. I feel faster than most agents I talk to. I think they get your genuine intention is to really help them, in a sense, and make a living. Like it's that simple. I don't have any kids. So, I got to say I'm a little bit freer with my time. And I just say, look, at this point in my life, it's about helping somebody. And if I can make some, a living that way, wonderful. And I could squeeze in a line on Blue Bloods here and a line on, the Blacklist there. Great. That's been happening from time to time, last few years. But I always say, don't blink. You'll miss my line.
Right.